Let's call the meeting to order with Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Cody, would you do a roll call of the board, please?
Supervisor Melky?
Here.
Trustee Bills? Here. Trustee Brown?
Here.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Trustee Thering?
Here.
Clerk Cody here, and Treasurer Rice is excused.
Thank you. That brings us to item 4 on the agenda, approval of the agenda. Happy to entertain any motions.
I move to approve the agenda.
Support.
We have a motion by Bills, support by Smith. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda passes unanimously. We have no presentations tonight, correct? Nor public hearings. I'm sorry, let me back up. I almost skipped ahead. Commissioner Engler, would you like to have anything to say? You have the floor.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to skip my board report because Trustee Bills does such a great job of covering our meetings, but I will take questions, any questions on the millage, and understand that as a Board of Commissioners, we're not allowed to endorse or support any millage stuff, and most of the stuff I say will be my own personal comments, so not on the board. So we got the legal definition out of the way. So. Yes.
I received a question from a constituent, so I'll pass it on to you.
Sure.
There were some raises given to employees last year, even if they were cost of living. Why were you giving raises when you were in a deficit situation?
A lot of the raises came usually from the prosecutors or some of the sheriff's office, and because they've been understaffed for so long, they were getting, to hire a new employee, you have to start them at the starting wage. So what they came to us is that they'd get somebody with experience, and they wanted to ask us to step up a grade to match their experience, to get them on board, because it's so hard to. So just about everyone that we gave raises to was because of their experience, and they were trying to get somebody to fill that position that they have not been able. It's been open for, some have been open for over a year. So.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, we're one of the lowest paid parts of the county as far as the county employees are. Yeah, we compete with Union Township, with the CMU, with the tribe. So and part of the reason a lot of we're so under our current budget is because a lot of our we're not fully staffed, and we haven't been for quite a while. The sheriff's office has been under, the prosecutors, the public defenders. We're just so they come for a request to do a bump grade so they can get somebody with experience to start, instead of having to start them out at the beginning pay grade. So that's pretty much what we did. I mean, we weren't giving anybody raises that we was usually a new hire coming in so we could get that position filled.
Okay.
I had a question. I believe it was yesterday or the day before, I was on the county website. Actually, I was looking at something and it directed me to the county website. It had a little Q&A about the millage. It had, 6 or 7 questions. And 2 of the questions were in regards to the jail. I wish I had it in front of me.
Do you want me to go through that whole jail?
Well, just
issue?
at least the 2 questions about the jail, and it was.
Okay, let's go.
It wasn't an answer. The other ones had answers to them.
Yeah, it's pretty. There's a lot of answers on there, but they're not the total answers. So, if you wanted me to take the time to go through the jail, I'll do it as fast as possible. But when we started the jail project, a lot of the questions we get are, "Why did you need a new jail? Can't you just add to this one?" Well, if we do a major overhaul, and that jail does not meet the correction standards, so we're not sure what would happen. We're pretty much sure we'd have to tear the building down completely, start over. Another question we get is, why did you spend the money for the land way out there? Well, actually, to demolish that building, we had over $1 million into that, and now finding out about the asbestos and stuff that was built in '57, we could end up with more than that. So basically, the property and demolishing that building was a wash. I mean, what we paid for the property would probably cost for And we do have plans for that old jail. It was built in 3 sections. And, you know, they just kind of added on to it. So the outer section, we want to do juvenile housing. That's the newer. The inner 2 sections are probably just for storage and maybe a maintenance area, because that's one thing it's going to be. But the other thing was, like I said, some of the standards were a safety issue, but the jail's a straight line. Well, now the new jails are set where you can see everybody in there, so it was a safety issue for the prisoners and for the guards. You know, women. Anyways, I don't want to get into the weeds of that. So it's very hard to do that. So when we decided to do this, and we decided we needed a jail, I mean, you could put Band-Aids on it or something, but it's just going to do it. So we had windmill money come in. We dedicated that to that. We got a variable rate from the USDA. And it looked like it was going to cash flow. It was going to be tight, but we thought it would work. I think we had 3, what do you call them, the perfect storm incidents that happened. Well, we had COVID. We were able to keep the interest rate. Some of the contractors kept their original bids, but the materials and everything else. The jail went up to almost $10 million over budget. We cut it back, did some refiguring, ended up about $4.5 million over budget. Okay, at that time we were looking at a safety millage, and committee was formed, and we were kind of looking at that. But working through what we were doing, we thought we might be able to get there. I mean, we were doing, you know, replacing, using some of COVID money. We were gonna, you know, one of the things we were gonna do is that the HVAC system on top of the thing was 10 years past its life. It was inefficient. We were gonna put solar panels up there, which would save the county money. Kind of similar to the stuff we were looking with the recycling center, the future. And, you know, we're still going aggressively after grants. I think we've had, since I've been there, it's like $35, $40 million of grants come in. Of course, a lot of it was through the tribe. So part of the thing to do that overhaul, they had to inspect the roof, and that's when they found the asbestos. The other thing that we found out is that our defined benefit program, but they quit in 2002. They had a real bad year, so they came down with another thing. So that increased the cost quite a bit. And we have plans for what happens if we don't get a millage, you know, where the cuts are going to. The problem is that we have almost 1,500 mandated services that we have to supply for the county. Townships are a little over 200. The city has less than 200 mandates. So there's only so many things we can actually cut because we're mandated. We're mandated to have a jail, or, you know, the prosecutors, the public defenders. We can go down, down, down. So that really limits us. So that is where we're at. You know, the jail wasn't going to get any cheaper. It needed to be done. It was going to have to be done sometime. People might disagree with it, but if you ever walked through that jail, it was not something that a community, especially if you had somebody in the jail, or not. County jails are not for extremely violent prisoners. They should be in prison. Jail is for the community. So, you know, a lot of the things we're dealing with in the jail, which the other one cannot handle, is drug abuse and mental problems. So I wish we didn't have to ask for this, but it is. I mean, we have 2 choices. I like to kind of address, you see the signs out there a little bit, the 38%. And, you know, I'm a straightforward guy. I'm going to give you a straight answer what rate it is. And technically it's true. Actually, it's 37.878787. Where they get that number from is it's a 6.6 millage, and the other 2.5. So it's just that little section. Well, I wish that was all we had to pay in taxes, because as a farmer, Commissioner Hope figured his would be just shy of 5% increase. You take the total. I figured mine out. Mine is actually about 4%. It's not because I'm getting a big break, it's because I have so many drain taxes on my property, so my tax bill is up, that percentage has come down, so that's kind of how it works, is you figure percentage, you know, you can, and what's the adage about numbers can lie, but lie or something, anyways. There's a thing in there, so we can make it come out, so I do believe that is a little bit, it's factually true, but it gives the people the impression that the taxes are gonna go up 38%, and they're not. That's just that percent. The only other thing is, that I'm not sure if that's to me, that's a political sign. And we still don't know what group's behind it, because political signs are supposed to have the group who paid for who on there, so. Anyways, that's what it is. Like I said, we're not, you know, people say scare taxes and everything, it's just, no, we're just trying to figure out how to get by. It's not, we've had 3 things hit us hard, the asbestos, I didn't mention the third, so, you know, that's 1.2 million to clean up, and we're trying to figure out how much it is to put everything back together again, which is probably gonna be 3 to 4 million. That might be conservative, so. So, I wish I wouldn't be here talking about this, but it is what it is, and our mandate is we have to balance the budget, so we will balance it, so it's, you know, we talk about the average price.
Under our zoning ordinance, a special use permit, and so they had their initial look at the application, set a public hearing that'll be at their next meeting. The application was in good order, and so, but as I said, the hearing will be during the February meeting. The other business item on their agenda was a preliminary site plan application for a Valvoline oil change facility that will be over on Bluegrass Road, right next to the Members First Credit Union, where they proposed it. That application was also in good order. A few things that need to be changed, but this is the preliminary site plan process. This is an early look at the site plan. The Plan Commission did approve it, and the Valvoline folks are working on their final site plan. Just had a conversation with them today about that, in fact. So we'll be seeing that project, I suspect, with the spring. They also had an early look at some of the numbers associated with our survey. I was able to give them a chance to take a look at the table, some of the quantitative results and the numbers results from that survey. It's not the full survey. I understand from Dr. Center that her report, they're working that report right now, so I suspect we're going to be seeing that within the next number of weeks. I think March is the deadline, but they did, as I said, get an early look at a few of the numbers, and not a lot of discussion on it at this point, because it's very preliminary. But this is all part, for the Plan Commission, is all part of working on updating the master plan. The other element with the master plan, I just want to mention, is that we have gotten started with the grant-funded component of that. Our township engineer has begun the process that we've identified in the grant from the Rural Readiness Grant that we received from Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. She started her initial look at that US 127 corridor from the perspective of properties, utilities, and kind of gathering data. So that project is moving forward. We also had an opportunity to look at a potential grant related to some additional study related to housing. That application has been put in. I don't know where that's going to go, but we did put an application in for a small grant to potentially help expand on the housing component of our master plan. So that is something that will be coming hopefully more to you about that later. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So I'm kind of surprised we haven't had more Airbnb type applications.
Well, there were two actually that came to our attention, and these were actually existing facilities. They were operating, and they came to our attention. So this was the special use permit is associated with an ordinance enforcement action. One of the two decided that they were not going to continue with that. They were in fact already sort of phasing out with moving to a long-term rental. And so they have pursued that process with the rental inspection program. Other than that, it's interesting. I was surprised that there were only two. But
Yeah, just because it seems to be such a growing industry. I don't know what made me think of this. You brought up housing. Have we heard any more from the tiny house group as far as, are they moving with anything at this point?
I have not heard anything recently.
Okay, just curious, because I haven't been hearing anything either, and I thought, well, maybe they're communicating with you in some way, but, okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much. That brings us to 9D, board member reports. And I'm going to do something really unusual here, and I'm going to go to Clerk Cody, because I know she's excited.
I guess I have like 5. No. So, okay, first meeting. We had the election commission meeting today and approved the list of election inspectors for the February 27th election. And then we had the public accuracy testing where we run all the ballots through the machine, make sure everything's perfect. And it went a lot faster this time because we only had the 2 tabulators, the 2 ICX, and then the 1. And normally we have 4, 4, and 1. So it went a lot faster than normal. But everything's good on that. And then we had the joint, or is it the joint road commission meeting today? Hold on. Get all my stuff right. What did we review? Feel free to add in anything I forget. We just talked about all the conditions of the roads in the township, what needs to be done in the future, what projects we're looking towards. Oh, I'm trying to find the page for this year. So, you know, the mill and resurfacing project, Broomfield Road, Pickard, Bradley, Bamber intersection. That is, he said August or April. That the light should be going up in April. And then
At Bamber, Pickard?
Bradley.
Yes.
Oh, Bradley.
Yeah, Bradley / Bamber. It's the same road.
Yeah.
And Pickard. Which was, they ended up budgeting or figuring out to where Union Township didn't have to pay anything on it. So that was
Is that
nice.
a regular stoplight?
Yeah,
Holy cow.
it's needed there though.
Oh,
I think
That'll include,
Yes.
much
that'll
needed.
include curb and gutter with the ramps and everything there as well. So,
Nice.
I mean, do you want me to name everything? We did talk about Meridian Road on a project, a joint project that Deerfield has approached the road commission on to see if Union Township would do a joint. And it's 3 miles, between Baseline and Pickard? Is that right? On Meridian Road?
High Street and Baseline.
High Street Baseline. And he wanted us to get back to us about adding shoulders, which, my personal opinion, I don't think we need them because it's not within the, what is that? Part of our walking zone or whatever it's, what is that?
Right away? The-
Non-motorized?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not part of our motorized plan, but it'll raise the price substantially. So he wanted to us to get back to him because I don't think Deerfield will want to do the project together if we add the shoulders and with the extra cost. So he wanted to hear everybody's opinion on that, if we can get back to him.
Wow.
I think, may I?
Yeah,
I think the other thing that's different about Meridian, I mean, one, it's more out county, right? Was that it currently doesn't have any kind of shoulder, and it's not a grind and pave where they're completely redoing the road like they did here on Lincoln. So then you're trying to make shoulders where they're,
Weren't any.
and marrying those with an existing road base, and he said that's problematic. We could do it, but it's problematic. They'd have to farm that out. So the road commission was, basically, I think what they're recommending is not shoulders there unless we really wanted to talk about it, in which case Meridian might, Deerfield Township might want to walk away. Is that,
yeah. So if we can get back, or do you have a thought on it?
I'd say no, if they're recommending, no, they're the specialists.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I would agree.
is it okay to get back with them saying
Yeah.
that it's
Oh, well,
okay to go
I
without
think so.
the shoulders?
So it's more
I'm
important
ready,
to get the
yes.
road done.
Yeah.
It's more important to get the road done and keep all of us together,
Yeah.
Deerfield and
yeah.
Road
and I-
Commission and Union Township.
I think the other interesting piece of this too was, they're looking at the 3 miles north of baseline as well. That is being done. So we're talking about a 6 mile stretch
Wow.
of Meridian
Mhm.
being redone.
I wrote it down.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, it's nice to piggyback on that and get that full 6 miles in.
That's a great road. Yeah.
Especially for that outer community out there
Yeah.
coming in.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a throwaway.
One thing I would like to point out though is that we're not saying we're never gonna put wide shoulders up, but just in this particular situation, we're saying it, just so that people don't think we're not gonna do wide shoulders at all. It's just in this
Right.
location, it doesn't make sense.
At this time.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, so that's all the road commission was asking, just this project. Yeah, that's good clarification, trustee Smith.
Oh, and then-
Excellent clarification. I believe we're all for the wide
Yeah.
shoulders like we did down here.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
Boy, that's
because the
sweet.
community just
Loves
came
it.
out and
Yeah.
loves it, and,
Yes.
and we see it being used all the time, so I would think, my side was to put large shoulders in anywhere we can for walking path except, or bike, except for outer, like we just talked about.
And then one more thing, Ms. Smith is gonna be getting the gravel road project, or that contract together for us to review, isn't it, gravel
I-
road?
Yeah, I gave her the contract.
Oh,
This is
so,
the
yeah, but
brine,
she's
right?
gonna bring it back to us, or at a future meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Soon.
think, was it 22,000 or 27,000? It was in that neighborhood.
It was in that.
Or you pick up,
Yeah.
yeah, which
So that'll-
2 miles of road that we would choose. I think that's it.
I would just, may I add?
Yeah,
One of the projects, and I think we've all heard about it, is the work they did on Broomfield last year. They did from Isabella basically to Mission, correct? And then we did with the County Road Commission from Lincoln into the city line, getting close to Crawford. And they're looking at doing the section from the cabin to essentially the railroad tracks there.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question today with them was, aren't you gonna connect from the cabin to where we came, because it's so close? And I think the goal is to do that, but they're not, that may not be part of the project. We'll see.
That'd be great if it was, because that would connect the rest of that. Is there sidewalks from where we left off to the cabin bar, though? We have church sidewalks, right?
There's that housing sidewalks.
Yeah.
And the church side,
Right.
is there a
Student
way to take a bike from Lincoln Road to the cabin bar without getting on the road? Except for the shoulders. There is,
I
right?
think there's a gap.
Don't
They
we
haven't
have-
been
There's a
drinking
gap.
probably.
There's a gap.
I'm saying, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of a jog, so.
Okay,
There is a gap?
There, I think so.
there is a gap in it? I'm not sure.
I
I'd
don't
have
know,
to
I
look.
drove by
can't
there so many
remember.
Because you got the
times.
vacant land, and then you got the
Yeah, there's that vacant spot.
vacant
with it,
spot,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you got the bigger.
But then again, you
property
might be
there.
able to jog over and hit the other side and go on that.
Yeah.
Kind of
I
go
was
back and
thinking kind of a
forth,
straight
which-
line, safe is what I was thinking, but, okay.
So I think the road commission was asking us to be partners with a couple of projects. Obviously, we'll start getting into the budgeting aspects of that and see what money we have left, if any, after those projects. And it's a good meeting.
It was a good meeting, yeah. Oh, and a big thank you to taking care of the roads and all this snow, ice. They put, what, sand on the one road?
Oh.
For traction?
Yeah.
I think
So
the
they're gonna
county
have to
did a
clean
good
that
job
up, so
on
that's
this
one of the
last
other
storm.
projects. But yeah, they're doing a great job.
Wasn't an easy storm either. to deal
No,
with. You have anything to add, Brian, as well?
No.
On that?
No.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Cody. Trustee Thering?
Nothing to add?
Trustee Brown?
Nothing to add today.
Trustee Bills?
I attended the COG meeting last week, where the county, geez, I think the whole board was there, wasn't it? Oh, that's right, Embry, right? Or- Yes. Yeah. So, the board showed up to discuss and, answer questions about the millage. And, there was some local people there from the county that were, complaining about how people aren't gonna be able to afford it. But that, they answered all the questions. And that's really all we did, was answer those questions. And so, that's all I've got.
Thank you. Trustee Smith?
Well, I hope I can do it justice of reporting on the county here for Trustee Bills, because everybody, even at the county, when they realized that I was probably going to be showing up, they were very disappointed that they weren't going to see you anymore. So you might have to make a little appearance there once in a
I'm
while.
sorry, Commissioner, but we're gonna do a handoff
So,
somewhere in the next month here.
Sorry,
I'm
you're stuck with me, possibly. So so the first one I went to was the organizational meeting on the 2nd. It lasted less than half an hour. Basically, just going over the election of all the board chairs, vice chairs, and all the different meeting schedules. So really, not a whole lot on that. On the January 16th meeting, obviously, asbestos and millage has taken up a majority of their time on the conversation. But a couple points that I'd like to point out is that they did approve an agreement with the animal shelter services with hats for 3 years at a no cost change. So I thought that was great, getting the same service for 3 years for no increase on that. Then they also did the discontinuation of the $15 animal adoption fee collected by Isabel County. So the county's not taking the $15, so that's going in, staying in with hats. And the rationale was the cost, the administrative time, and everything like that to process the $15 was just not worth it. So I thought that was very nice. And then they talked about different they had, I think, not the prosecuting attorney's office, but the public defender was in there talking about some staffing. And so I'm just getting caught up to speed, so hopefully I'll be up to speed shortly. But so very informative. And we did have an intergovernmental liaison meeting this morning. So if you want to touch on that, you
Go ahead and I'll fill in anything that I feel is relevant.
So it's the county, the city, the township, and the tribe. A couple things interesting from the cities that they are doing a developer-friendly marketing video, and then they're going to gauge the reactions from that. I thought that was very interesting that they're doing. They're outsourcing some of it for an economic development study to get actual data on when people come and go and where they're at. So that was really interesting. Again, then the sheriff's talking with the county. It was MRF upgrades, the materials management plan, the millage request, and again, the correctional facility. But one thing on the materials management plan, I believe they have 8 counties that signed a letter of intent, which I thought was really good
Wow.
on that. So I think that is, or is that not public information yet?
No, I was just talking last time I heard we only had 4, but if we had 4 more on there.
I heard 8, so
I heard too, but
sorry.
no, that's what I heard too.
I know, maybe I shouldn't have said it, I apologize.
No, it's fine, because we've been going to meetings all over, and I don't think we meet Friday in a couple of weeks, but that's good news. I haven't talked to Jake in about 2 days.
So, sorry, I'll leave the fine details out next time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that is great.
Yeah,
And you got big shoes to fill on the county
I know.
stuff.
I know.
I don't know.
So. Thank you, Trustee Smith. I always love your reports, just
Thank
so
you,
you know.
sir.
Yeah.
Well,
So with that, I did send out an email today, and it was really prompted by Trustee Smith and Trustee Bills about just reevaluating our committee assignments. I don't know if the email made sense, but I thought it's a board appointment that makes these things happen, right? And that as long as there's some concern on one end, maybe we should all make sure that we're in a good place with the assignments that we do have, whether it's still working with your schedule and or if you'd like to try something else and someone's willing to swap kind of thing. So that's what I asked to be on the agenda for this next meeting. So when we come, then at that point, if you have strong feelings about wanting to try something, that's a great time to voice it. Make sense?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I believe you've been asking Trustee Smith to take your place, which is
I
by
did.
our policies. Whenever
Yeah.
you can't make a meeting, if you can ask one of the other trustees to go. Just a reminder. I think you covered the intergovernmental meeting pretty good, so I'm going to move on. That brings us to consent agenda, item 10 on the agenda. Happy to entertain any motions regarding that.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by Smith.
I did the accounts payable and everything was good.
Good to hear. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously to approve the consent agenda. Speaking of COVID, I got COVID the day after the December meeting, and I still got this cough. So if I keep clearing my throat, forgive me. I feel better, though.
Good.
Let's see, that brings us to new business 11 on the agenda, item A, IT managed service agreement with CMS. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you and good evening, everybody. Our IT services have been outsourced since before I came here. It's been a number of years, and I think been with CMS all that time. The agreement, we have a managed IT service agreement with CMS. They manage all of our IT operations. Our environment includes network hardware, software, business application software. We have many physical devices from phones, computers, printers, servers, fiber optic cable, switches, monitors, the whole bit. In fact, we have approximately 33 users on the network. We have 50 or so computer workstations and seven, might be 8 servers across multiple locations. It's the administration's recommendation that we need a deliberate and rational IT support program for an organization of this size and complexity. It provides for real-time IT management, prevention. We used to be under what I would describe as a break and fix model. And then I think it was in 2017, we entered into the first managed service agreement that existed for, I want to say, 3 years. It was renewed once. We're back up today to consider renewing it again. It's a 3-year contract with a month-to-month continuation clause. The benefits include real-time server and computer operating system updates and patch management. There's monitoring of and deployment of security updates for antivirus, spyware, malware, that kind of thing. There's a live help desk that is available to our employees with a job ticketing functionality. They help coordinate the line of business applications, the BSNAs, Microsoft Office, the PubWorks that's used by the utility department. There's managed data backup and redundancy components to this. They have, as part of this, if the agreement is approved, we'll be able to take advantage of some significant enhancements in what they refer to as their security deck. You may recall that we've moved a lot of our servers over to their shop and out of our facilities. That's a security component. The annual fee for this contract is $63,512. It's payable in monthly installments of $5,292, and this represents a 10.25% increase from the 2019 price. Okay. And if you annualize that, it's closer to 2.5 per year increase. There hasn't been an increase since 2019. So with that, there's a report that begins on page 14 of your agenda packet, and be happy to try to answer any questions you may have on this.
I just have one, because I was looking through this and it says, in the list of services that are not included, it includes any software licensing, software renewal, upgrade fees of any kind. And does that mean we have to pay for our Microsoft Azure server licenses every year too,
Yeah, we pay Microsoft licensing,
separately?
yes.
How much is that? That one way up.
It's per user, I want to say $12 a
The
month.
server software? That's in the thousands.
Yeah, you're not referring to the user licenses, but server licenses.
Server licenses,
Like the
server,
Windows Server versus
Yeah.
Windows 11.
yeah.
Oh, I would not be able to answer that right
Okay,
now.
I'm just curious. I mean, it's still a good deal.
Sherry might. Do we pay a server licensing fee?
We have a big, long list, spreadsheet with all the different things detailed out. And I don't remember, every item on the list.
Oh, well, that's okay. I think it's a good deal either way. It's, they're covering the whole system, and that's not a bad deal.
I'll make the motion.
Sure.
I'll make the motion to consider, well, not to consider, but to approve renewing the managed IT services statement of work with CMS Internet LLC for a monthly cost of $5,292.70, and authorize the township manager to execute said agreements.
Support. Sorry.
Motion by Smith, support by Cody. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the contract with CMS Internet LLC for the order of $5,292.70 per month to be executed by our manager, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to item 11B on our agenda, Michael Engineering Edition, IFTE application. We've had 2 hearings, both in December, I believe they were. Maybe one was in November. So this is the 3rd step of that. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you. You're correct. We've had a couple meetings on this topic. We do have a representative from Michael Engineering here tonight. Just to briefly recap, originally back in April of 2013, the Board of Trustees approved an IFT certificate to 12 years to help facilitate the establishment of the facility that they have now on Venture Way, that is in the Enterprise Industrial Park, and it's in the township's east DDA. That certificate expires in 2025. In the spring of 2023, Michael Engineering began construction on an almost 12,000 square foot addition to their existing building. That was completed in October of '23. The investment, if you will, exceeds, per the company, $1.3 million, almost $1.4 million. Public Act 198, which governs these types of things, also requires that an agreement of understanding be executed between the township and the applicant. That agreement is also in your packet. It's been negotiated, if you will, between the township and Michael Engineering as it sits in your packet. Tonight it contains a description of the project, some annual reporting requirements by the business, has provisions for transferring an amendment and amending the agreement, and provisions for the repayment of the abated taxes should the certificate be revoked by the state of Michigan. I will note that the current that the application that came in originally was for a 12-year term, which was consistent with the previous certificate that was granted. The administration is recommending an 8-year term on this. From our for the following reasons: it's an expansion versus a new facility. The 12-year term was granted when that was a new facility. There's been no many times these expansions come with commitments on jobs. There's not any commitment for jobs in this. And the application was in fact made after the completion of the project. So we're recommending that the term of the agreement be 8 years as opposed to 12, and you'll see that in your write-up that again begins on page 29. The resolution that you're being asked to consider begins on page 34. There is a spot blank on page 35 for the number of years should the Board of Trustees want to do a different term than what the administration is recommending. And then the agreement is also in your packet. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I'll make the motion. I move to adopt a resolution of approval for a new industrial facilities tax exemption certificate and associated agreement of understanding for an 11,760 square foot addition to the existing Michael Engineering Limited facility at 5625 Venture Way, PID 1415200000601, in an existing industrial development district that is part of the Enterprise Industrial Park for a term of 8 years, beginning in the 2025 tax year.
Support.
Motion by Bill, support by Brown. Discussion?
Yeah, since Mr. Pruitt's here today, I'd like to thank the family for keeping that business here in this community and what you've done and with the jobs. And we, being a lifelong resident, appreciate that we have a facility like yours in this community. That's all I need to say.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Second those comments. Other discussion? This is a resolution, so we'll do a roll call vote. Clerk Cody, everybody understand the motion?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Clerk Cody?
Supervisor Melky?
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Bills?
Yes.
Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Trustee Thering?
Yes.
All yeses.
Resolution passes unanimously. Thank you again.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 11C in our agenda. This is 2024 Gordy Fraser Engineering Services for South Lincoln East Pickard Sidewalk Project. Potentially butting right up to that new signal we were talking about earlier. With that, Mr. Stuhljar, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you. And we are asking the Board of Trustees to consider approving an agreement with Gordy Frazier in the amount not to exceed $27,500. This would provide for civil engineering, construction, administrative services for the completion of approximately 1,300 linear feet of sidewalk along the north side of Pickard between Lincoln Road and up to the existing sidewalk near Ashland Drive. These services would include engineering, design, bidding and permitting assistance for the construction work, construction administration, inspection services. This project would complete a barrier-free pedestrian link from Township Hall and McDonald Park into the City of Mount Pleasant's network, which if you look at just the city, it's an internal network, but it's also part of a broader regional network that we would then have access to. We're a little unsure of what the easement status is along there. We will determine that. That's part of what Gordy Frazier is going to help us with. The FY 2024 budget that was approved includes $900 and some thousand for sidewalk generally, and about $350,000 for this project itself. We're excited about it, and we're hopeful that we might be able to get that 1,300 feet built. I think the wild card is the easements right now, and we'll have a more complete understanding of all that following their work. So the administration recommends approval and be happy to answer any questions. Earlier in the evening when we were online, Miss Jennifer Graham from Gordy Frazier is online if you have any questions.
I do. Do you think it'll take the whole 75 days to get this started? And wrap up the engineering part?
Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Do you want me to turn my video on?
You're fine. There you go. I mean, either way, you're fine.
I'm still sitting at my desk, so no. No, I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. I've been working with Rodney on this, and so we've already started some of our research in anticipation of this project moving ahead. Because as Mr. Stuhljar indicated, the big wild card is the easements, and looking at what we have available for right-of-way and setbacks from the road itself. So we've started that. We've already collected some missing information, actually some topo, and had engagement with the road commission. So I'm hopeful that we're going to have a good concept and some discussion with both your planner and your township manager as to, you know, the exact alignment of this sidewalk and what we think for, you know, how much easement do we actually want to pursue? Are we just talking a construction easement? But we are anticipating some level of permanent easement. But to answer the time question, no, I hope to actually have that resolved within the next 30 days.
Oh, wow.
And once we can define that, then, you know, that's the hardest step, honestly. The rest of it is, I mean, it's pretty, there is some topo, a little bit of topo challenge, but really it's just doing the grading and pulling the bid package together. So if we can figure out the easement situation, yeah, we would like to see this move ahead this year, if possible. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
I've added more questions, but.
Anybody else have a question?
I have none.
Very exciting.
I
Thank
know,
you,
and
Jennifer.
I'm very
It is.
happy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
I move to approve the agreement with Gordy Frazier, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $27,500 to provide civil engineering and construction administration services for completion of approximately 1,300 linear feet of new sidewalk construction along the north side of Pickard Road from the South Lincoln Road intersection east to the existing sidewalk near Ashland Drive, and to authorize the township manager to sign the agreement.
Support.
Motion by Bills, support by Smith. Discussion?
Excited. I hope that goes
Yeah.
All I'll
quick as possible.
add, and maybe this is more for the public consumption than anything else, but the sidewalk we're talking about would be just outside Township Hall on this corner here that would run all the way to Bamber Bradley corner on Pickard, which would connect then into the city walkway system. So that would actually connect our park here into the city system. So this is a project that has a lot of potential upside to it, so.
Hashtag walkability.
Or even connects the Commission on Aging.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You know, you go through the
right?
park and get you all the way Commission on Aging into
Yeah.
town.
yeah.
So that really,
Yeah,
that's
it's
huge.
big, it's big.
This is a big section.
We have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the contract for engineering services with Gordy Frazier for the sidewalk just outside the hall here, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you to all that are helping make this happen. That brings us to item 11D on our agenda, at-will employment agreement. Mr. Stuhldreyer, I'll let you introduce this.
Thank you. Tonight, you're being asked to consider approving the form and substance and use by the Township Manager's Office of what I'm calling a standard Department Director at-will employment agreement. There are various sections of our policy governance document and also contained and supported by the manager's job description, whereby the department directors work at the pleasure of the township manager. These positions, you may have heard the term at-will before. They're considered at-will positions under the at-will employment doctrine. The employment relationship can be terminated at any time by either the employer or the employee without written notice or advance notice of any kind, and the relationship can be terminated for any reason as long as that reason is lawful. You can't terminate somebody for an unlawful reason. The recommended agreement is designed to help advance and effectuate the retention and attraction of excellent employees that we currently have on staff, and that as time goes by, we want to make sure we can attract into the workforce as conditions dictate. The agreement provides some assurances to employees that the job will last, that it outlines compensation and benefits for the department directors. There are advantages to the employer for executing documents like this. These are not particularly uncommon for executive level positions. It provides clarity and some certainty regarding expectations between the employer and the employee, outlines obligations and respective roles, and all that together reduces the risks of misunderstanding or conflicts. As indicated a minute ago, I think this enhances our having something like this available to the township manager, whoever that may be, provides a real positive tool, a powerful tool to attract top-notch candidates that we often struggle to find. Key provisions include the agreement outlines the compensation and benefits during employment. It describes duties, performance obligations. There is a severance component that there's a formula, maxes out at 6 months of severance. There's a benefit payment. There's an extension of benefits depending on how the employment relationship was terminated. The severance provisions only come into play if there's a termination without cause. There's a dispute resolution provision in the agreement. If there is a termination without cause, there's severance and benefits and other value being provided to the employee in exchange for that. There's a separation and release of claims agreement that's integral to the employment agreement. That's in this document as well. This agreement was put together with the input of the city attorney and the existing department directors. Be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this item.
Do we not have a procedure manual for employees that has most of this in it already?
Pardon me?
Do we not have a procedure or employee handbook that addresses most of these things already?
Our employee procedures manual is dated 2004. We don't have a current one. We have, as a matter of practice, many of the provisions that are in the employment agreement. The big one that doesn't exist anywhere is the severance.
And that's where I'm a hard no. That's all I've got.
So once the contract is signed, there's no renewal provisions, like right now, your contract is renewed, we go over your job performance and everything, then the board decides to renew it or not. There's no renewal provision in this? It's like, once they sign the contract, it's not a lifetime, but as long as they do their job, it's in effect.
Yes.
Okay.
Both parties, operationally or logistically. If the board were to approve this, then it would be presented to the employees for signature and also my signature. If the employees refuse to sign it, no harm, no foul. The existing status quo would remain. And that then it would remain in effect until the employment relationship terminated for any of those three reasons.
Okay.
I mean,
And I just have another statement. I was looking through the policy governance, 2.3.3, shall not establish current compensation and benefits which deviate material from the geographic or professional market for the skills employed. Now, to me, that's where I'm kind of thinking every manager, administrator has a contract. I'm not aware of a lot of department heads having a contract like this. So that's where I'm kind of struggling to support this because of some of those things in there. And the 6 month severance, I mean, for some of them, that could be 30, 40, 50,000 plus health insurance. So if, God forbid, we had to downsize, and then now we're stuck with this, I don't want to say stuck, but now we're faced with this obligation of we can't downsize because we're stuck with this $50,000, $60,000 hit.
Per person.
It makes it tough, and I'm not saying that. And I would like to think that everybody reports to the township manager, so that it's not like, yes, there's politics involved anywhere throughout the organization. I understand that, but we can't fire them, so that really takes a lot of the political pressure out as far as I'm concerned. So that's where I'm really having a hard time saying yes to this. My thoughts.
I think we could fire them. Right? If there's an election coming up in November, if there's a whole new board and they don't want policy governance, they get rid of the manager and they clean out staff. And that happened, is it Ottawa County that, in Michigan that
Oh,
did this?
yeah.
It can happen.
I mean, that can happen.
Yes.
And I hope it wouldn't in our community, but
Mhm.
that's been the one thing that I've worried about.
Okay.
I don't disagree with a lot of your points, but from my perspective, absolutely, everyone in this township is fireable by this board. It's just that we've agreed to a policy that's not in our power. We've all agreed to abide by that.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty much this is saying without cause. So
Correct.
if you have cause, you can still terminate him and then none of the
Then you-
benefits or something. This is just saying, I don't like you, you're gone. So they actually get something for their years of service, correct, kind of thing? Is that,
Yes,
You know, put it
just
in
as the
different-
board could wake up tomorrow morning and decide they don't want Mark Stuhlter as their township manager because it's raining today, you could come in, you could vote 4-3, and I'm removed. At-will employees, there are 4 at-will employees in the organization, 3 of which are department directors. So, those department directors are at some risk. I could wake up tomorrow morning, the sky's not blue, and I have the authority, the prerogative to make changes. I could decide that we're wanting to go in a different direction than the existing skill set provides for. So, there might be reasons to let somebody go without cause because we want to bring in others with a different skill set. This simply is providing those affected employees that are terminated only without cause, with some, with the ability to continue living their lives in a similar manner while they're looking for work. The rest of the agreement is primarily putting on paper what the practices are. What our current practices are. I mean, right now, I could let any one of the 3 go, all 3 of them go. They would not receive any severance, they'd just be shown the door.
Clerk Cody?
and we said that they can choose not to sign this and there's no penalty or anything against them for not signing it, correct? Like-
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And the only, I would suggest that the only downside for the employee to not sign it is that if down the road there was a termination without cause, they just would simply not receive any benefit.
Is this,
Well, sorry, trustee Therian?
is this something that, if it was approved, it's just a one-time approval then, or is it a yearly renewal?
I'm asking the board approve it, approve the form of the agreement as it is in your packet. The substance of it, and then that would be the end of the Board of Trustees' involvement in that. If the substance, if I wanted to change the substance of it, I'd have to bring it back to the board.
So I think, trustee Smith, you brought up an issue that would be my biggest concern. I really like this as a recruiting tool, a retention tool. It's done in the corporate world a lot of time for executives. You gave the case where we had to downsize essentially, right? You're not necessarily in a position to go, you know what, we're gonna have to shell out $150,000 plus health insurance for 3 directors. But we were mismanaged as a township, and we can't afford to go on the way we are. We've got to, that's essentially what you're trying to paint, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that would be a concern of mine, that we put ourselves in a bad position in that light. But overall, I think there's a net positive from a employee retention and attraction perspective. Can you speak to that at all, as far as, does the agreement address if our coffers just couldn't make payroll?
Well, and you heard a bit of that dilemma earlier tonight by the county commissioner. Yes, it costs money, costs a lot of money to operate an organization. Your employees are by far your most valuable asset. You spend the most money on them. If you're not able to recruit and retain employees, you're going to end up in a place you don't want to be anyways. Whether or not citizens of any community want to put up with the degradation of service when it comes to having to do wholesale cuts, that's up to the community. But these are executive level positions. We are not top heavy in terms of management. This affects 3 positions. And I can safely say that the department director level position, as is, I think, similar to the township manager position, those would be some of the last to go. Okay? You need leadership, you need somebody that can marshal the forces to get work done. Without that leadership, you just are scattered. You got everybody doing whatever they want to do when they want to do it. So I think as a realistic proposition, the top management would be here. Union Township has very little in the way of middle management, almost doesn't exist. My experience, and I'll juxtapose the department director and this proposed agreement and some of the protections it provides those individuals with what I'll refer to as then the balance of our workforce. They are all covered by collective bargaining agreements. They have various protections per that agreement. They have protections as it relates to layoffs and how that process works. They have recall benefits. Should we have to do a downsizing? So there are a variety of provisions that exist in the collective bargaining agreement that provide some protections, if you will, if there's a downsizing. As it relates to the department director level, what I'm suggesting is that the organization should put in place some protections for our employees at that level that do a lot of work, they work a lot of hours, and there are conditions that can occur that impact those individuals in those positions that are unique in the organization. So one of my objectives long-term, doesn't matter who the manager is being able to recruit and retain good employees. And I think this would, it was mentioned earlier that there's this circular competition for good people. It's central, it's the city, it's the tribe, it's the county. And once you get somebody in here that is very good, we want to keep them. You don't see a lot of new employees coming in from, out of state, other parts of the state. So when we get them, we want to keep them. And that's what my objective is here. That was a long answer to your question.
No, that's helpful though. Trustee Smith?
I know at one time the Public Works Director was in the union, under the supervisory unit. Does the fact that those three positions on a rotating basis fill in as the township manager when you're gone have an impact on why they couldn't go back to the union? Or what, is there a reason why they're not in the supervisory union for those protections?
The former position of public services or public works director, and I'm not even sure that was the exact title, but that position was eliminated. I came in, I wanted non-union, non-bargaining unit folks running the departments here in the township. And so through discussion and with board approval, the Department of Public Services Director position was created. And then it was first advertised internally, interviews were held, and that person was hired into that position. They don't have any, there's nothing about them going back into the union.
Okay.
I mean, unless I'm wrong, our public services works and Mr. Nanny and and Sherry, they're long-term employees. I don't understand the risk
The risk of what?
of them leaving.
Well, it's my job to understand those, and I do. I want them, and I don't want to. I don't want to confuse individuals with positions any more than naturally occurs. But we have 3 department directors. Some have been here 20-some years. One has been here 20-some years. One has been here closer to 7. One's been here 3, maybe 3. Not quite 3, maybe. They all have their unique skill sets, and they're running distinct, disparate departments, and I guess what you're trying to analyze is what's the risk of me as township manager wanting to make a change for any number of reasons for the benefit of the township. I mentioned one in particular, a skill set. We have a completely different skill set in here today, just in the position of the Community and Economic Development Director, that we didn't have before. That position was created since I've been here. It was filled, and at the time we had very specific needs in that department, and 10 years from now, 5 years from now, the needs of the organization could change, and we need a different skill set. There's been talk of a human resource director, maybe we can't afford 4 department directors, but it's going to be up to the manager, and then you can control the manager as to whether or not the organization is performing and creating the output and advancing and meeting your ends. If you're dissatisfied with that, you need to deal with the township manager. If I'm want to make a change, I can do that. I can do that today. I'm just simply wanting to try to provide some, a little softer landing should that event happen.
It's too much for me. I mean, that's 6 months is way too much. Compensation. 6 weeks would be more
Is
appropriate.
the amount of time, or what you're presenting, is the amount of time negotiable in a sense?
This is for you. This is my recommendation to the board. You're free to and encouraged to tweak it to the extent that you think it makes sense for the board. You're the ones that vote on it.
I mean, I'm not against something. I'm uncomfortable with 6 months, speaking to the board. Has nothing to do with our directors. I mean, they're wonderful people. That's do a great job. I think Mark's done a wonderful job. The manager's done a wonderful job surrounding himself and the township with good people. But I today, as I said, I don't sit comfortable with 6 months. I could be comfortable with something different. I could be comfortable with a vestment period as well, rather than, just because someone is hired and they, on paper, and interview well, doesn't mean as they get going that it's like, boy, we have a communication issue, A vestment period of 2 years. After that 2 years, you get a month or 6 weeks or whatever. Severance.
As I read it, at this point, and maybe I misread it, there is that year period, because you don't gain the 1 month until the year
Right.
of employment, so there
Right.
is a buffer there of, this isn't a good fit, right?
Well, yeah.
But I see your
And I'm
point.
just saying where I'm comfortable. I think I saw when we were going over our budget where I think we had an employee who wasn't vested, or he or she wasn't vested, and I believe it was part of the, and if I'm wrong, my apologies, part of their I'm guessing a pension package or something, 401k employer contribution had to be returned. So I'm looking at that as if we can agree, maybe we don't, on a set time, just give it to them after a vestment period, which probably
I see.
at the end of it anyway, it's all the same. But I'm not against something. I am not for 6 months as I sit today.
If you change it to week instead of month, I'd be for it. 1 week for each year.
I mean, I'm not gonna do that. I think more than a week. That my feeling.
Up
and
to
I
6
respect-
weeks. Up to 6 weeks.
I mean, if there was a 24-month vestment period, I wouldn't have an issue with a 6-week severance.
Mm-hmm.
Something along that. I mean, I think everyone here meets that criteria, but it also gives whoever is the manager or our manager, not currently, the opportunity to not only, if retaining and recruitment, I don't know if that's a big, 6 weeks after 2 years. I don't know how that affects. But it's something.
Well,
I think
these
it's-
taxpayer
About 3
dollars.
months.
To me, the
so,
6
I
weeks
mean-
is too little. I'm sorry, Trustee Bills.
No, you go ahead, sir.
I was just gonna say, to me, the 6 weeks is too little. I can see the argument on the 6 months, but 6 would be too little because I see that as attraction and retention tool.
I understand.
And fairness in a political climate or whatnot. May I? One more point.
You go.
So listening to this, I mean, I'll tell you, I came in. We always come in with our own feelings as we go through our packet, right? So in general, I'm supportive of the concept. I'm supportive in the sense of retention and attraction, right? And we've heard that from other municipalities in the region. It's a difficult time, right? Trustee Smith brought up a couple things that made me think, and Mr. Stuhldreher, as he was speaking, what if we had a rogue manager that decided to fire all 3 directors for no cause?
I know the answer
Or
to that.
board.
We fire the manager and hire the directors back. And
They
then
might
get a
go,
different
no,
manager."
I'm wanting my severance.
Well, it's a little too late.
Yeah, it's a little too late at that point. So, I mean, we're putting a lot on the manager that the manager's not gonna go rogue, right? In that light?
I'm not afraid. I guess I don't want to think about things that are just way, way out there. I mean, if you have good people, if I had them surrounding me, no way. You know, that's my opinion. That's how I feel.
I agree, in a sane world.
So, I mean, the goal is,
What if you did 1 month for every 3 years worked, maximum of 6 months? Because then you keep them for a lot longer. And you gotta be here longer to earn it. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, I have no idea. Or is that too long? 3, 6, 9?
For me, too.
And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'd caution you against overcomplicating
Oh.
any sort of formula for one. There's no point in executing something like this if the benefit is going to be de minimis. Okay, then it's just window dressing. You have already, but the fact that you have adopted governance policy, you have already placed an enormous responsibility on the township manager, much more than communities that don't have this agreement. And that can be good or bad. You know, Ottawa County, they didn't have anything like this. That board comes in, they might be the outlier. Saginaw County, they came into a meeting not too long ago, and they let their county administrator go, you know, just for the heck of it, or, you know, who knows why. But times change, needs change, and I just simply thought with the authorities that you've already given to the manager, particularly as it relates to personnel, that as part of executing those authorities and in the end being accountable to you for those authorities, that a manager the manager's going to replace folks when they need to, whether this document exists or not, under your policy governance. Not going to be the Board of Trustees. And if you have a rogue manager or a rogue department head, then, you know, that department head will get let go with cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good reminder too that this is only for without cause for these directors that we're talking about. Clerk Cody?
And that is the one reason I'm for this, is because it's without cause. Because, I mean, if you're gonna fire somebody, you should have a reason to do it. So, I mean, this is just protecting them, I mean, like I said, without cost. That's the only reason why I think this is a good document, because it's just protecting them and making them feel comfortable or safe.
That's
So
why,
somebody's not gonna come in and, sorry,
that's why it's retention and an
that's my
attraction
opinion.
tool. I'm sorry, Trustee Smith, you had your hand.
No,
up. You had a thought?
I kind of lost my thought.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
I think, maybe corporations do that kind of severance, but that's a lot of money. And that's a huge benefit for an employee if they do get fired for no cause. I think corporations might do that. They have a lot more money than we have that do that. Most corporations, you're looking at 6 weeks. And we have huge benefits here. We have good wages. We have solid employer match for the retirement plan. We have excellent health benefits. We have good benefits, and it's worth a lot. I think that if the manager has trouble hiring someone, that would be the time to come to the board and ask for an increase. Like that's what they do in the county. They say, we can't hire somebody for 3 months for this position. We need somebody in this position. I need to bump it up to this much money. I think the money, when you hire somebody, there's where you're gonna get somebody. You wanna recruit somebody, make the wage better.
I mean,
And I'm not interested really in debating anybody about this. This is your discussion. I would like to just, nobody gets fired without cause. The employment arrangement ends. Okay, nobody's getting fired. There's an employment arrangement. In exchange for X, you get Y. If that, if that relationship ends, you're not getting fired. If you're stealing money, you might get fired. But
Terminated.
so, I just want to make that clear. We are blessed right now with some, it's the positions we're talking about here. What did I say, 20 plus, 7, maybe 3, I don't know. We need to remember, though, that the loyalty equation these days is a lot different than it used to be. And so it doesn't take much for good people to decide, hey, I just want to work at home, so I'm out of here, So I'm just simply trying to create some infrastructure, if you will, to help the township do what they can to, attract and retain good people. Yes, there's always a risk that any one of us has that, the employment relationship's going to end for whatever reason, whatever reason.
Would the possibility, and first of all, I mean, you made a lot of great points, and I want to thank you for articulating them so clearly. What about on the severance? I think that's where we're all kind of really tied up on, is after 3 years, you get 2 months. That's it.
I would support that.
I'm just throwing it out there because I don't want to say 5 years, then it'd make it look like, you're one person that doesn't have the 5 years, then they're left out cold for 2 years. I don't want to make it look like that. So I thought 3 years, you get 2 months, severance for wages and insurance. I'm just throwing that concept out there. It's simple.
I would support that.
Would that be something that would you think would fulfill your goals of retention and possible recruitment if you needed to?
Can you repeat the
3 years, 2 months. After 3 years, you get 2 months salary and 2 months of health insurance instead of the 1 month. So it's just, just creating a.
And so this was brought forward to you with not really a front-end year type of thing. It was, it maxed out at 6 months of severance. I'd have to look at it a little closer, but I wonder if just replacing the 6 with 3 months doesn't move the ball for the board.
That's where I was, to tell
Yeah.
you the truth. And I just have to ask very clearly, is anybody sitting at this table in an agreement like this?
No.
No.
I am. 3 months is comfortable for me.
After how
3
many-
years, 3 months.
3 years, 3 months.
You got
Yeah.
3 years from the get-go, or 3 months from the get-go. in
I'm
your
not gonna
mind.
tell you what my contract
Okay.
is, it's
No.
better than that.
No,
But-
after 3 years, you get 3 months. So you get nothing for years 1 and 2. You gotta be here 3 full years to
3
get the
months.
3 months.
So you've put the time in, you've put the work in, you've proven yourself.
You're not here 1 year and you get a
You're-
month
yeah.
already.
I'll
So
go
it's
2.
kind of a year 3. It's kind of it's a perk then in a sense. It's kind of sort of.
Yes,
I
I'd
could
go
go
two.
more than that, but if our manager feels this is a tool at that level that you just articulated, Trustee Brown,
Mm-hmm.
if our manager feels that's a tool it's worth pursuing still, then I'd be supportive of it.
If I may say this, we're talking executive levels, right? I took a position, one, because of an agreement like this, for less money in a position that I have now. I don't need to go any further than that. But this agreement that I had to sign, similar, was part of that decision for me, to move into that position. So what you're saying is, for, as far as hiring and retaining employees, this definitely works. I know that for a fact. Being a person like myself that got involved in this agreement, it was security for my family. It wasn't so much me. If I was a single guy, I'd just go do stuff, but this was security for my family. And I had I have younger kids, so. I'm very comfortable with the way the contract's written with the 6 months. I'm very comfortable with that, but if we need to come to an agreement on the 3 years, 3 months, okay. But I mean, I could go more than 3 months personally. Again, these are executive positions we're talking about.
And without cause, that's why I say I'm fine with the 6. That's
I
me
am-
personally,
I
just
am too.
because it's without cause, and that's the main reason. Because who's gonna get fired without cause? Is the exact thing, you know,
Good
so
question.
I'm good with 6 if you wanna switch it a little lower to make everybody more comfortable.
It's kind of where I'm at with you.
If
that-
3 years, 2 months, or 2 years, 2 months.
I would be willing to vote yes for a 3-year investment for 3 months. That, I would be willing to vote yes to that.
Same.
Same.
I think that's where I stand. That's where I stand.
Let me ask our manager if it's okay. If that was the tool you were given, I think Trustee Smith actually articulated the question pretty well. Does that give you what you feel you need as far as your goals in this process?
Just with maximum.
So we
3.
would update this, and I'd need to bring it back to you, so again, I want to make sure I understand. The idea being, the language being along the lines of three years of employment, and then after that, a termination without cause would provide for 3 months of pay and the continuation of benefits as described in the document. That is much better than what you have now. So, gonna help.
Trustee Smith? I'm gonna come to you two because we've voiced
Yeah.
common support
Well, we're
for
not
that, so-
voting on it tonight.
We
right?
aren't, but,
I mean, put it in there. I got to think about it. I mean, I don't want to quibble over 1 month. I mean, I mean, at this point, I mean,
well, that's where I was at too, because I
you,
think,
you know,
for-
I'm much more comfortable with the 2.
Yeah,
But do
me
I
too.
do? I mean, 1 month. Do I want to really make that big of a deal about it? So that's my thoughts right now.
I appreciate those. And I think where Clerk Cody was, I was fine with the 6, but I'm willing
Yeah.
to compromise in that light, so. It's nice to have consensus. We don't have to have consensus, but
We're missing a member tonight too.
that's true.
Yes, when you're talking about compromise, I know I probably, when I came from the 2, you know, I get it. I get it. So.
And
Well,
that's,
I
where-
just-
that's where
so-
I'm willing to compromise too.
That's-
I'm fine with the way the agreement was, the way I read it. I was fine with that agreement. I would, you know, for an executive position, that's not unheard of. But if we're gonna, absolutely, I'm more than happy to work together on this, to come up with a agreement everybody's good with.
So I would just say just rewrite it the way we described it, and then, you know, I'm not saying I'm a no, I'm just, you
Right.
know,
You're open to the idea.
I'm open to the idea, yes.
Can I ask, when you bring it back, can you have both options on there for when Treasurer Rice is here too? That way, because we don't know her opinion on it. You know, that way she can choose if she believes in the 6 or if she believes in the 3 or the 2 or whatever. Just like leave it, both of them on there, just so you can kind of choose. Do you know what I mean?
So well, one, I don't believe there's been a motion made on anything right now.
There hasn't.
And you can have your debate and your compromises, you can approve it. You can have a motion, somebody wants to make a motion, you can vote it down. But or you could be, I guess, collectively suggesting that I bring it back with my best guess as to what is going to get me 4 votes.
Correct.
Correct.
I mean, that's
It's,
Yeah,
what we're
that's,
saying,
that-
right?
that's it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we, I know, y'all
Everything
know
else
me,
past
I don't
4 is
like
just
to-
icing on the cake.
Yeah. And I'm certainly willing to attempt to do that. If, I would rather have that opportunity than a motion to, not approve it, and then we just walk away and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
There also sounds like in terms of trying to coalesce around something, it sounds like if the right motion was made, it might get approved and we'd be done with it. So,
All right, I'd like to make a motion. I'll make a motion approving the form, substance, and use of the Township Manager's Office of the Standard Department Director at-will employment form agreement to, I guess I don't want to say this, to have a 3-year retention for a 3-month salary and benefit disbursement at that time if they were let go for no cause.
3-year, you say vestment?
3-year, yeah, 3-year
Three-year
investment for
investment.
3
Minimum
years.
of 3 years of employment,
For 3 years. Yeah, or
For-
after which
months.
termination without cause would provide for a 3 months of severance pay at the then current rate of pay. I'll just,
Yep.
all that language is already in there.
Yep.
And the continuation of the benefits is described for that same 3-month period.
Exactly.
Primarily, that's healthcare.
Mhm.
That's what matters around, that's what matters is healthcare. And, okay, I understand that. I don't-
Do I need to
I
re-say that?
supported it.
Oh, you
supported
did?
it?
I
Okay.
didn't
Yeah.
hear that. Okay, so we have a motion by Brown, support by Cody. Trustee Thering?
Is there a second for a little more discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
I have to apologize, I cannot remember if this is in here or not, but does that include 401k? It's by month, correct? Where the township puts X amount?
The
does that-
matching.
Are we just talking salary plus insurance? We're not talking
I
about.
don't think the 401k.
I don't think that counts.
Keeps going after your term, after the.
I understand, but the town, so would the township for the next 3 months put in
You
the,
can't. You
It's
can't.
not in the motion.
okay, very good.
That wouldn't be
That's
legal,
all.
I don't think.
That's all.
So just for clarity, the motion just for me, the motion is essentially the substance, the flavor, of the agreement as presented. The only thing you're suggesting changing is that kick-in time and payout time.
That is correct. Yep, vested 3 years, 3-month payout time is a
Yes,
motion.
everything else,
Right, Lisa?
Yep.
what's paid, I mean, as it's articulated essentially.
Yep.
Yep. All right. That,
Yep,
good?
yep.
Other
thank you.
discussion?
Do it as a roll call.
Anybody else?
Good.
Anybody not clear on the motion? Would you do a roll call on the motion, please?
Yeah. Clerk Cody, yes. Trustee Smith?
No.
Supervisor Milky?
Yes.
Trustee Thering?
Yes.
Trustee Bills?
No.
2 noes and, oh, wait. Trustee Brown?
Yes.
And 4 yeses.
If I counter right, that was 4-2, motion passes.
Correct.
Mr. Stuhldreher, just for sake of bookkeeping, cleaning, house cleaning, are you clear on what was articulated?
Yeah.
Yes, and I will create a redlined copy and distribute it to everybody so that everybody sees the change I've made, and if there's if you feel I missed it,
Okay.
then you have, because you're the board, let me know and I'll redo it. You can also come back and, you can always, as a board, vote to rescind the use of the form.
That sound good to,
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on then, 11E on the agenda, preparation for annual joint meeting. So this should be fairly free-form. Just as a reminder, right, we have our annual meeting where the Board of Trustees does a small presentation of what's happened in the township the past year from our perspective, where we see it going. And then each of the boards have an opportunity, typically the chairs, and because of Trustee Therian, so I'm trying to give you kudos here, in the past suggested this be more of a forward-looking meeting, that we actually use it as partly as ownership input, right? What does our planning commission see as the needs for the future, as well as what they've accomplished. I think that was
Yeah.
a summary of what brought us to wanting to put this on the agenda. So we have a meeting coming up, so my hope, and this can go wherever it needs to go, my hope is that we are able to articulate at some level what messaging as a board we would like to give to our other boards, right? As well as messaging from us, right? As well as articulate what we would like to hear from those other boards so that they can properly prepare to help us. Does that make, did I articulate that okay? So with that, I'm just open up the floor. This should be fairly, I kind of think of almost brainstorming.
I personally really like to hear the year-end review that they have, and then their projections into the next year would be nice. This is the same meeting at Jamerson Hall that I attended last year, right? That's an outstanding meeting. And I think that's what they gave us was their, the department heads that did, or the boards that did stand up and give us an update last year. They went over what they covered in the past year, if I'm remembering right. And then I don't know if they gave us projections into the future. And it doesn't have to be very far, but just some sense of the direction, you know, that maybe the department head or the head of the board sees or is looking for from us too. Anything they need from us in that way.
You know, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go
you're-
ahead.
you're-
I pulled up the agenda from last year, and you know, just simple presentations. We get very good updates from Mr. Nanny regarding the Planning Commission, Zoning Board, and the EDA. So what that does, it kind of puts everything that Mr. Nanny has done the whole year and puts it into a little bow, and then we talk about it. I wonder if we get into more goals rather than we know what everybody did. What's our goals? And make it a goal setting session rather than just a joint meeting where we talked about the past. Just shift the focus where everything is where we're at in the future. And that's just my thought.
So to
So
take the
do the-
projection, don't worry about the past.
Yeah, don't worry about the
Yeah.
past because, you know, we get great updates, you know, and so that's just my thought. So if we change it to more of a visioning document rather than a reflection document.
So
I
they,
agree, I think that'd be more productive.
I would agree with you 90%.
Sure.
You're 100% correct in that I think this board, we get our regular updates on what's happening with Planning Commission. We probably know more about what's happening on all the various boards because that's part of our reporting process to us. But what that meeting provides in its own old form, right, where it's looking to the past, what was done, it lets the ZBA know what the Planning Commission's been going through. It lets the ZBA know, the Planning Commission, what they've been doing, right? EDA gets to speak.
Yeah.
And so there is an advantage, but I think it's the small part, and I think you articulated well that goals would be my primary focus on what I'd want to see as Board of Trustees at least. And I think your original idea was we want to use this as ownership input for budgeting purposes too.
we have a panel of people.
Right, that are dedicated to our township. Trustee, or Clerk Cody?
Yeah, that's screwed up. I like, the best part about that meeting is when people say what they accomplished and what they were most proud of and a future project. I loved hearing that because the way they talked and they were so excited to say, we did this and this and this and, you know, we were part of this. That's the best part. I'm just saying. I mean, if you go to the meeting, it's really nice to hear things like that. And what they, you know, because it kind of, I don't know, it's nice.
So to get to there, can we ask that it be put on the February agendas of our boards for discussion? If there's time, of what we're asking. Hey, when you come here to give your presentation, the very last thing I want you to talk about is the subject to help, and then why.
Yeah, my thoughts, and I had a meeting with Mark on Monday, and we discussed some of this, and I hope I can say this, but you articulated to the staff that help coordinate these meetings that we may want to do some messaging on this. And if we were able to articulate it, they can be proxies for the Board of Trustees, right, as well. For example, Mr. Nanny to the EDA. I can also speak to the EDA because I sit on the EDA board. You sit on the Planning Commission board. So not only do we have liaisons that can articulate what our hope and what our expectations are, but staff can be part of that too.
Well,
And that may come into specifically being as an agenda item.
right, so that they know when they come to this meeting, this is one thing, we would just like to hear what the discussion was about. It could be 3 sentences, it could be 5 minutes.
Like when Kim Smith started talking and she wasn't prepared for it, and she just said all the projects they're doing, what they're working on. I mean, that was like really cool.
Yeah, I felt bad. I think I
Yeah,
put her on the
but
spot.
it was really
yeah.
awesome. She did a good job. But I'm just saying, you know, like, projects they're working on, projects they're wanting to do that maybe aren't even in, but,
Okay, for
Yeah.
sake of moving this along,
sorry.
is there any disagreement on it's healthy to bring up at least a
Goals.
summary of the year? But
Yeah,
let's focus.
just a
But let's
summary.
focus on
Goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
where we as a community decide we want to go.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Is it also reasonable that as liaisons to the various boards and/or staff help communicate that?
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, if Mr. Nanny's gonna, because he's in charge of several different boards, I would have no issue, for example, the planning commission, so the message stays the same when he makes his presentation, because he does his presentations very well, as
Yeah.
we all know, to do it. I mean, I don't have a problem saying something, but you want to make sure that message hits home.
Right.
So.
Mr. Stuhldreher, I didn't mischaracterize our discussion,
Sorry,
did I?
Rodney. Put you on the spot.
No, we knew we were going to be talking about how we wanted to handle the joint meeting. I have let my staff know that have board support responsibilities to begin to prep their respective boards for the April meeting, and that we, on the administrative side, I assumed, would come away from the meeting tonight with some thoughts that we would then be asking these respective boards to think about. And so what I'm hearing right now is that Planning Commission, remember there's an April, whatever it is, joint board meeting. We would like you to bring your annual report, because they've already done one, to that meeting. Run through it quickly, primarily for the benefit of the non-board of trustee members that are here. And then, for those of you that are here, we would like to hear from you what you think in your, we don't even need to confine it to what board, as active representatives of the community, what are your thoughts on where we should be going, what we want to look like, things like that in the next 5 to 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's
We're
great.
perfect. Clerk, Cody.
Snacks.
I was gonna go there too.
Yeah, sorry.
I was gonna call it attendance though. How do we get better attendance? And I think after our
Food.
last meeting,
Food. Yeah, get a good answer.
Right? Sorry.
and I'm not sure how we
I
do that
don't
unless
know.
maybe the Board of Trustees, we wanna all pool in some money to provide something.
I mean,
Cause I'm not sure we can use,
I would.
I'll bring cookies. Give Bill
I'll
a
chip
thing
in.
some Sam's Club.
okay, or we could bring stuff.
Yeah, no matter.
I'm assuming we should not and cannot use taxpayer money to attract board members to show up to a
To a
optional
meeting. But I'd be willing to chip in money or whatever we decide.
Don't they already get paid for the
Yes.
meeting anyway?
Do they?
Not all.
No, not all of them.
No.
But it's cookies. We have to have cookies. I'm really hungry right now, I'm sorry.
All right, well, how's this? I think we have time to figure out,
Figure out.
but we'll figure out something amongst ourselves
Yeah.
that will hopefully help attract some people.
I'll look at that question because you're allowed to spend public funds for the benefit of the community, generally speaking. You know, and might be able to make a nexus between that meeting and, I mean, one is public meeting.
Could this be considered training?
Yeah, you know, it's, I'll look at that. But you're right, I mean, you're asking a lot of these people already. And now here you are, you know, asking them to think ahead and, you know, and what, you can't even give them a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Cookies and pizza.
I can create, you know, the retirement parties, that's obvious,
Yeah.
you know.
But whatever you come up with, and
Yeah, right.
we'll figure something out
I
too.
mean, we ought to at least be able to provide cookies and coffee. It's not gonna
I'll be more
dinner.
than happy to pitch in if it doesn't work out
Yeah.
that way. I'm with,
Yeah.
I'm with
I will too.
I
Trustee
would as
Smith.
well.
So let me ask the question then, are we missing anything in this discussion?
No, I don't
Okay,
think
so do you feel you're able to articulate to the staff that you need to?
I believe
What you heard
so,
from us?
but
'Cause I think
since
you
I
artic-
have the benefit of one of the main players here that covers 3 boards, Mr. Nanny.
I have some notes.
Okay. All right, do you feel comfortable with what we were saying? And
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, next one.
So, yep, we're good.
Yeah, and just to follow up, if we get them to speak about where they as individuals, essentially, is what I think I heard, would like to see our township go, our community, it might be there may be opportunity for us to help lead that through questions too, direct questions. What do you feel about our policies on being proactive for walkability? You know, almost our, I don't want to say our survey, but we can,
I was just thinking that,
Yeah.
Right.
just kind of twisting it a little bit, yeah.
we think about that a little
Good
bit,
idea.
but have a section maybe after some of that discussion, or to help lead that discussion, so that we can hear from them, because that's the goal, right? Is we want to hear
Mhm.
from them where they see us going.
Sounds good.
Okay. So as liaisons, though, be prepared if Mr. Nanny's not there. Or at least to jump in if we feel like you're missing something. Are we good then?
Yep.
Moving on?
Mhm.
Thank you all. Item 11F, Policy Governance 2.1, Treatment of Consumers. Mr. Stuhldreher, this is yours, if you're willing to introduce.
Yes, thank you. Their report to the Board of Trustees begins on page 71. January is the month where we review policy 2.1, treatment of consumers. I'll read the policy quickly. With respect to interaction with consumers or those applying to be consumers, the township management team shall not cause or allow conditions, procedures, or decisions that are unsafe, undignified, unclear, unprofessional, indirect, untimely, inaccurate, or unnecessarily intrusive. There are 5 sub policies to that. Management shall not use application forms that elicit information for which there is no clear necessity. Management shall not use methods of collecting, reviewing, or transmitting or storing client information that fails to protect against improper access to that material. Management shall not fail to establish with consumers a clear understanding of what may be expected and what may not be expected from the service offered. Management shall not fail to inform consumers of this policy or to provide a way for persons to be heard who believe they have not been accorded a reasonable interpretation of the policy. And fail to post and keep regular office hours so that citizens have reasonable opportunity to take care of businesses, of township business. I interpret this to mean that the Board of Trustees seeks to ensure application forms only elicit information that is necessary, that the information obtained will be appropriately protected from unauthorized access, keeping in mind we are governed by FOIA. Further, consumers, I believe, as part of this interpretation, should be able to have a clear understanding of what it is they're going to receive in exchange for the dollars or the application fee that they are paying, and that a mechanism should exist such that if they are unclear, they can become properly informed. I think this is a reasonable interpretation. We are trusted with obtaining some, at times, sensitive information. Some of that information, Social Security numbers, there's other laws that govern that. We have mechanisms in place to take care of that. We do let our applicants know, particularly in some of the development arena, hey, most things that come through the door of the township are subject to FOIA, so be careful of what, just understand that you're providing information. I have some data here that that in my mind indicates that we're in compliance with the policy. We continuously review applications so that they're relevant and accurate. We have done a lot particularly in the land use area. Applications we continue to identify and update, and so that they reflect the ever-changing zoning ordinance that we have put into place, or that as things come down from the state level, as it relates to service options, applications and ordinances, those are all on our website. We're making progress towards having things like fillable forms on our website. In 2023, the rental inspection, planning and zoning community information sections received significant updates. There's a development approval process flow chart on the website that wasn't on there a year ago. We have done a lot of work updating the new residence page on our website. We have information regarding new commercial fire suppression and alarm information, which has been helpful to the building official, having that information out front and available to his customers. We are spending much more time, I think, as appropriate, keeping our web page up to date. We identified broken links today that have already been fixed. We have our fee schedule on the website. Design specifications for all the water sewer builds are on the website and available to the builder community. Many of our applications that relate to assessing poverty exemptions, PREs, those kind of things are all available on the website. In terms of making sure we're available and providing the service to the customers and are responsive, because the title of the policy, after all, is treatment of consumers. Our water utility staff are on call 24/7. They respond to calls promptly 7 days a week. We have an emergency call-in number on the website. Sensitive information such as Social Security numbers are masked before they go out, and many times we don't even collect the earlier digits unless absolutely necessary. There's a few others that I won't bother reading through for time. So I think the report was submitted on time. I think the interpretation and justification for that interpretation are reasonable, and I think I have some data here that suggests that we're in compliance. Thank you.
All right, I checked. January is the month it's supposed to be here. So do you have an issue with that?
Yep.
You read manager's interpretation, so it laid it out. Any issues with the interpretation?
No.
No.
So is it justified, reasonable? I'm just going to say, you said no issues, right? So I'm going to move on from that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Did the interpretation address all aspects? I'm assuming based on your responses it does. Object if you think otherwise. And then compliance, obviously, is an important one. Feel we're in compliance.
I think
Yes.
so.
I do.
Anything else in this policy that you feel needs to be updated? As always,
No.
reread the policy, and
No.
I'm good too. No objections, we'll move on.
No.
Okay.
Item 11G on our agenda, Policy Governance 2.5, Financial Conditions. Mr. Stuhldreher, this is you again.
Thank you. This is a quarterly review of Policy 2.5, Financial Condition and Activities, due in December. I'm not going to read any of that policy. It's there. We review it 4 times a year. I think the board, generally speaking, is very up to speed and familiar with the financial condition of the organization. There is data here. This is as of 12/31. We are still processing 12/31 transactions, even though we're into the new year. So this is not cast in stone. But for instance, if you go to page 81 of your agenda packet for just the general fund, you'll see that we had an amended budget where we would be projecting adding to fund balance of $91,000. Right now, that number's a little over $500,000 that we'll be adding to fund balance. That would suggest that we continue to maintain our liquidity and that we're meeting our financial benchmarks. There are some limitations in the policy with respect to not making single unbudgeted non-emergency expenditures of greater than $10,000. I did, to that point, I had sent out a communication back in September of '23 as it relates to the fiber, and I was cognizant that I was right on the edge of this policy. So I informed you, gave you the opportunity to comment on that, and I did hear from Dr. Bills. She thought that it should have come to the board, which I appreciate that input. So I feel that not only are we adhering to the policy, but we are also letting the board know when we think we're getting up close to the edge of the line. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
I'll just second Trustee Bill's comments that it's not something that's a habit, but I would have felt it would have been better to bring that fiber to the board. And if we need to change policy because of something there, but at least as I understood it, there was no emergency there.
Right. I articulated in that email why I thought I was within policy, but I also recognized that that may not be uniformly agreed with. And so, and that was in September. The input I received a few months later, I take that to heart, and it helps guide me moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the line's 10,000, so that's the line. Until we move it,
That's how I interpreted it as well.
not 17.
And
It's quite a bit more.
it was budgeted, and it wasn't a surprise.
So was the Vector truck.
Right,
You
right.
know, I mean, it's not the number, it's
Right,
it's
right.
principle. If
Yeah.
you wanna move the number, we can move the number. But, that's all I'm saying. It's not, it wasn't part of the policy at the time, so that's where we're
I'm kind of curious if other trustees have any issue with that. And the reason I bring that up is, and I think you just said, if we need to move the number or change the policy so that it doesn't constrict but protects the town, doesn't restrict our manager but protects the township. You have any issue with the policy as written?
I think we can bump it up a little. Or no, like, as far as the 10,000, I think it can be a little higher because almost everything now, like, doubled in the cost, like everything. I mean, you go to the grocery store, you spend $500, you used to spend 100 or 200. I mean, well, that's me anyway.
Anybody
This
else
might
has?
be
I'm just
the
saying.
First time, though, in my tenure here that something like that has happened, so I mean, I don't really think we need to rewrite. And I'm sure the manager, if something like that would happen again, would approach it maybe a little bit differently. And if we find that he's having to do that more often, then maybe that'd be the
Yeah.
time to consider a policy change.
Okay.
That's my feeling on that.
Sounds good.
I agree.
at. I do too.
Okay, me too. I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah.
Because I went through that thought process as I read the email and, okay. Thanks for that. So, again, this was due in January, no objections there, right?
No.
The manager's interpretation is here. Do you have any issues with that interpretation? Because that's important.
No.
I do not.
We lost our clerk.
Cody out.
Justification, you read through justification. Any issues there? Interpretations justified, reasonable. You feel that the interpretation addresses all aspects that our policy tries to address?
Yes.
And then compliance, any issues with compliance?
Just one.
Just the one, that's what I was gonna say. I was saving it till then, but you brought it up, so. Anything in the policy that it's not clear, you wanna change?
Not at this time.
No.
Me either. So we're good. Moving on then. That takes us to item 11H on the agenda, governing style. This is more in our wheelhouse. This is policy, board policy 3.1, governing style at the highest level. I'll just read this briefly. The board will govern with an emphasis on outward vision rather than internal preoccupation, encouragement of diversity in viewpoints, strategic leadership more than administrative detail, clear distinction of board and chief executive roles, collective rather than individual decisions, future rather than past or present, and proactively rather than reactively or reactivity. Do I need to read more of any of that?
No.
No.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Did you guys know you said that out loud? Just saying.
Trustee Smith, sorry, we were on the same wavelength.
I
Didn't know I was so forceful with that.
In case it wasn't clear, maybe I'll read that section one more time. All right. So let me ask the question, do you feel the board's in compliance with their own policy here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Absolutely. This is one I think we do well at.
I think so.
Anything we can do to improve?
have a question.
Yes.
We do this every year. We accept governance policy, but am I missing it? I don't see where there's a period of time. Would it behoove us to say, if we accept it today, it's accepted until the next January, where it's reviewed again, where you have to commit to it again? I know that kind of ties the board's hands if the board wants to do something different, but
You mean to adopt the whole document, the whole
well,
policy
yeah, I
governance
mean, like
document?
right now, we're saying, yeah, I guess we're saying, yep, we're agreeing to operate under this way of governing, right?
What?
Governance
I
policy.
think we've already said that. And what we're saying now is this is the policy that we've agreed to. Are we living up to it? Right? What am I missing?
I don't think individual boards have to adopt it every time. I think it's just like a policy that is written, just like an ordinance or something else that you just follow. If you don't want to, then you do away with it. I think it's just automatically in place.
Okay,
That
that
answers
answers
your
my
question.
question.
Okay.
We don't need to.
That's the way I interpret it, that it's automatically in place until you say no.
And this is our report card, right?
Right.
This is our report card.
Yes.
Am I interpreting that right, do you think?
I thought.
It is, but what I've done, and I've only done it twice here, because of every time there's a new board in December, there's been an agenda item that allows the new board to vote to continue operating under the document that I got behind me, governance policy document. And I do that mostly so that I'm certain that I've heard from the new board that they're gonna operate with this, because it helps accountability both ways.
That makes sense.
Rules of the game. Clerk Cody? Sorry, it took so long.
I forget stuff. Okay, so I still think we should look at that amount, because the cost of everything has gone up in that one part, or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Do you want to bring that back?
Right now?
No.
We all kind of voiced our opinion on that, and I think you're the only one that wants to change it. We all did.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Just
Trustee Thering?
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
Oh.
I thought somewhat we were making, and I
My
do
bad.
remember that when we first started, how we kind of agreed, yep, this is what we're gonna do, and I just didn't know if it made a difference, you know,
Oh,
just for the governance policy aspect of it, that we're, I mean, by saying we're gonna do it for a year, we're tying our hands if we ever wanted to make a change, but I'm fine with it as is. If you're fine, I just.
it's fine.
It's good.
You could always change your mind as a board in the middle of the year.
Yep. And this, it's a living document. We can change
Right.
the contents
fine.
anytime.
It's okay.
So we said we're in compliance, correct?
Yes.
Anything that we can do to improve the process, or anything we need to discuss on this one? My comments in general were, I think we do pretty well at this particular part of the policy.
Yep.
I'm gonna move on, and if there's no objections.
No objections.
All right, thank you. That finishes our new business. That brings us to extended public comment. Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. Let the record show we have no one connected remotely. We'll open up extended public comment at 9:25 p.m. Seeing no one coming forward, let the record show no extended public comment was given. We'll close extended public comment at 9:25 p.m. That brings us to item 13, manager's comments, and I think this board is hoping you're going to be brief.
Yeah, I'm only gonna make one, and it has to do with Meridian Road. Just want the board to know that, well before today's meeting, the administration and the road commission have been talking about Meridian Road, and, apparently it was talked about again today. My biggest concern with Meridian Road, that, and I've expressed this and asked for some information back, is that 2 years ago, at the 2023 annual meeting, that section of Meridian Road on the Pazer rating was the second from the highest. And so my first question is, and I don't ride it every day, but why would we be redoing a road that is second from the top in their scoring method of the condition of the road? I don't know what the Pazer rating was today on that, but, and I was also the one that brought up, we want shoulders because we want shoulders. And then, yes, the road, many of the roads already have a base and are wide enough to accommodate that, even if they don't exist now. This road doesn't, I get that. And so we'd be okay. I mean, double the cost to have those shoulders. But I did ask staff to find out an answer as to why we would be working on a road, reconstructing a road that a year ago's Pazer rating said it was the second from, they have 7 numbers, I think it is 7.
Right.
And number 1 the best, 7's the worst. Why were we talking about doing a road that had such a high Pazer rating?
Are there any that have a really low rating that we could think about instead?
Well, if I recall, though, the middle section had a Pazer rating of 4, and the other ones had a Pazer rating of 3. The north
this
and
year?
south. Yes, this year's. So I don't know how it went from a
And I
7 to a
hadn't seen
4.
I
Yeah,
haven't seen the
yeah.
Pazer rating for this year
Yeah.
yet, but
Okay.
So I don't know.
that
That's-
may be all the answer
it's-
I need.
Or, but what happened in that year to cause it to go?
Oh,
I don't
it's
have
around-
last year's
It's
report, so I don't
crowning.
have to compare. But
He said it was crowning or
The
something.
biggest reason I wanted to mention that is because we know the roads are very important to the township. We don't own them, but we do have a responsibility to work intelligently with our counterparties that do have those responsibilities. And I don't want the board to think we just blindly do what they want us to do.
Right, I agree. That's good to know, and, I know it's not my turn to talk, but I just wanna say, I think Meridian Road is a really important road, so,
Me too.
you know, it's
Yeah.
a really good artery from the northwest corner there.
Right.
Arterial.
Thank you.
With that, final board member comment. Trustee Brown?
Just one. I would like to welcome the community in and to watch this board work. I am extremely proud to be on this board. I sit on a few different boards. This board seems to work very, very well together, and I wish more people could see that. I really do, with our conversations and how we get to an end. It's outstanding. I just want to say that. I really enjoy being a member of this board because of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Bills?
It's like less than 8 weeks till spring or something like this. I'm ordering my sunflower seeds.
The countdown has begun for Trustee Bills.
nothing more for me.
Trustee Therian?
Oh, I got one more thing.
Oh, sure.
So I got COVID when I went on my cruise in the Caribbean. And, so just because I already had another cruise paid for, I'm going again this weekend, so I'm hoping for no COVID.
So we're fingers.
Yeah, so are we.
Did you get it that close together?
Yeah. Trustee
Good night.
Payne? Good night. Clerk Cody?
Just wanted to thank the girls in the front for helping me out with all the extra election stuff that I have to do, just helping everything go smoothly, and all the staff that's helping me with all the extra work. So, thank you.
And there's no election on January 31st.
No,
Right. Appreciate your comments, Jeff. I know we've said it here a few times together, but I'll say I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate the different viewpoints you bring. We don't always agree, but I think there's mutual respect. That's huge.
I appreciate all the patience everybody has.
It's called love. One last thing. I missed the last board meeting, and I missed it for the best reason. I am a grandfather for the first time in my life. Brand new. My daughter, youngest daughter, had a daughter, and I can't think of a better reason to miss a meeting. So forgive me for that. But
No
I
problem.
was at 410. I was in Midland the day of our meeting, and I wasn't coming back for
The
it.
heck no.
So with that, I'll be happy to entertain motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Support.
Motion by Smith, support by Brown to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
I'm with Lisa, I am.